Welcome, everyone, to Nopes and Opes. I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Hylan,
Yeah, it's true.
in good old Minnesota.
Yeah, Minneapolis, Minnesota. We are here.
The old stomping ground for me.
Do everything look good on the camera? Do we need to open those shades at all?
We're good.
Oh, I feel like it's really dark. Like that Okay, I can't see it, so I'm
I
gonna
can see it.
take your word for it. Yeah, I mean, I think this has been like this is we've actually done a fair amount of recording this weekend, which I think is pretty cool.
As
But
of right now, we've recorded 4.
yeah, that's impressive. I'm very happy with that. But I also think it's very kind of funny that full circle, like this is almost to the year anniversary of when the first episode was released, and we're here in the original recording studio,
Yep.
right? So it's kind of like the full, like, oh wow, okay. But no, I think it's really. I was very happy to not record in here, like when we moved into your apartment originally. But I also feel like it's really cool. Like I was like, oh man, Rowan doesn't have to drive all the way here just to record. Like I can drive too. But I'm actually glad you made the trip because for some reason I'm enjoying this experience recording in this space. Yeah. And also, I think it's really weird. I'll be interested to see if people do actually watch the YouTube video and they see like where we're at and if they have anything to say about that
artwork,
whatever that's called. Because to me, I think that that's something that I actually really like, and that's a very personal representation. But I'll be interested to see if anybody else says anything about that because I like it.
That's my favorite one that you've done.
But I think a lot of people that drives them crazy. They just can't handle it.
No, it's my favorite one. I like art that you don't necessarily need to know the meaning behind it. Like you just look at it and be like, oh, that's just I like how it looks.
The title of that one is like my brain trying a picture of my brain.
Oh.
And I think that's very accurate. Like that tells you exactly. Well, not exactly. There's still room for interpretation, but that's kind of what I was thinking. Like that's how, like if I was going to kind of manifest a two-dimensional kind of representation of my brain, that would be the representation. And I think it's somewhat accurate, like within the realm of how you interpret it. So, but yeah, I really like that one.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be a drastic shift in topics, but it's November, and we just had an election.
Oh man, yeah, we did. Yeah, we just had a huge election. I mean, and I think.
Also, I got to preface before you begin to get in it. We have avoided politics on the podcast.
Like to my detriment in some aspects. Like
Hylan has made it clear he would like to talk about certain politics.
No, and I would, but at the same time, I'm like, don't do it.
Yeah,
don't do it.
I always avoid it because I necessarily don't pay enough attention to politics to feel that I have enough knowledge to really make like a concrete point or to have like a in-depth discussion about it because I'm kind of in the dark on all things politics, which is not necessarily a good thing, but you know what? I accept it.
This is going to sound really bad, but do we have enough knowledge about anything that we talk about?
Fair.
Right?
I mean, I have not. I mean, when I talk about my life, I got knowledge about that.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
But I mean, we step into arenas that we have no business. Like honestly, we're like, and like I'm, like I all the time. I'm like, Hylan, you got to stop pretending that you know stuff. Like all the time, I'm just talking about stuff, and people are like, "Wow, you really know a lot." And then I think about it, and I'm like, "Nah, I basically just made all that up." Like, I'm sorry, that's not correct at all.
Well, there's like I had in one of the podcasts we recorded. There's a moment I'm gonna cut out, but I was beginning to talk, and I finished kind of the thought, and while I finished, I was like, I didn't like anything I just said because it all was made up on the spot and it wasn't well thought out. And I was like, that's garbage.
Yeah, no, I mean, like honestly though, I think that's the kind of the magic of podcasts.
Yeah, I
Is that
mean,
true?
I'd say this stupid little thing, but like I believe all of life is improv. You
Yeah,
just make it up as you go along. Same
absolutely.
thing with a conversation,
Yeah.
like it's a yes and that's a lot of what our usually most of our podcast topics start off with like we're going to talk about this, and then we kind of just see where it goes.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have specific things we want to like hit on, but
Well,
for the
I
most
think
part,
I think like eventually at some point we will have your brother Emmett on,
yeah.
and like his main topic that he wants to talk about is how to play the game of life,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that's it. The more skills you have in creating the improv that you want to create, the better your life's gonna go. But in the end, it's just a game,
Yeah.
right? It's just a chance to create some improvised moments, and hopefully they're to your betterment. But yeah, it's not. It. I mean, if you take it too seriously or whatever, you're doing it wrong because
Yeah.
in the end, it really is just this pretty simplified game. But yeah, the thing that we're going to talk about though is by no means simplified, and we really there's a little bit of hesitation I think on
Oh,
both
I'm very hesitant.
our parts here because we both are like this could go really badly.
Yeah. Well, also like this election, and I've heard this been said a lot, it was so important and was so kind of like shocking versus all the elections that have kind of like come in the past.
Yeah.
Just from like from a society's standpoint, from the left versus the right. And so I'm always very kind of like I don't step into politics because it's very easy to cross into territory where like I don't know what's going on. I don't need to express it. But
Well, and that being said, I think we are going to try to play the game and like split the middle
Yeah,
and try
we're
to
gonna
get
dance. Just
try to
dance
get out
down
of
the
this
line.
conversation without offending too many people, but also hopefully making some people think a little bit
Mhm.
and begin to kind of figure out like maybe how to look at things for the next 4 years or whatever however you want to look into like project into the future or whatever. But
Or
I
maybe you're gonna share how you're gonna think about things, and maybe that'll be
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and just like maybe how like people have reacted and how you're thinking about things now, and maybe how you can begin to like possibly think about things in the future, and just kind of go from there. Because I like the kind of the impetus of this, like in my thinking, is I have just seen some of the reactions from people, and I have dealt with my own reactions and my own thought processes within the actual voting and just the like going through the election and leading up to the election and the results after the election and how this past week went for me. And I've had to do some soul searching, right? And had to kind of really think about things on a level where I really didn't I really haven't gone for quite a while. And it's been very it's been very revealing. It's been very interesting. It's been very kind of thought provoking for me. And like I'm just gonna start this off by just reading one paragraph from the book that I wrote. And I just like I'm impressed with this paragraph. And the book was published in 2014, but I think it's really relevant to today and kind of how we where we're at and like watching people's reactions and watching kind of the world react and just my own personal reaction. And yeah, so I'm just going to go with that. So,
Okay.
without any
By the
further
way,
ado,
the book is available in the podcast description, nopesandopes.com.
yeah. And the title is government. But yeah, I'm just gonna read one of the paragraphs. So there's only 2 paragraphs in this whole chapter, or whatever these things are called. I don't know. But so basically here we go. So furthermore, no government has the right, ability, nor the responsibility to make its citizens happy or successful. This is impossible. There will be individual successes and failures within every society, and a government of any society should feel no need to try and remedy this situation. Although a government should try to create as equal a playing field as possible for both individuals and its members of society as a whole, it is actually necessary to experience both successes and failures in order to be able to develop the ability to assume responsibility in the first place. And this, I think, is the sentence that I really like. The role of any government should be to try and aid its citizens in the pursuit of their own successes and to create as many opportunities for this success as is possible. In the end, however, the success of any individual should be the result of their own time, effort, and hard work. And I think the the value of that paragraph and those words in thinking about the present day is that whether you're for Trump, whether you're against Trump, the reality is Trump will be the next president of the United States. And if I've seen some of the reactions from the people on the left, right? And I've
Mhm.
just watched some of the videos and I'm just like, whoa, what the heck? Like there's some really, really bad reactions, right? Like people just throwing them on themselves on the floor and just having these tantrums. And I'm just thinking to myself, like you, in doing that, you're not only giving Trump power over you to create this reaction in you, but you're also like taking power away from yourself, right? And giving it to like a power entity or person outside of yourself. And why are you doing that? And like I find that amazing, but then I bring it down to like the very personal level, and I've been having a lot of conversations with my students, and it goes from like the macro to the very very micro, right? Like to my own personal relationships, and I'm like students are coming into my office and they're saying, "Oh, this girl's talking about me or this girl's staring at me or whatever." And I'm like, why? And they're saying, yeah, but she's so annoying. She's bothering me. She's upsetting me. She's making me anxious. She's making me nervous or whatever. And it's like, okay, I get it. But by allowing this person to like look at you and cause you anxiety or cause you to be upset, you are willingly giving that person control over you.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Why? Like that seems like crazy to me. But like that is a huge part of our society right now. And I don't know. For me, it I don't get it. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and like my I I've tried to write a little bit of comedy pieces that are political because I'm trying to do things that like scare me, and politics always like has scared me from a humor sense. And the basis of a joke that I started was like, no matter who wins, they're not gonna do everything that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Like, so, and this is prior to the election actually happening. Now that Trump has been elected and whatnot, but like, even if Donald Trump does get elected, and or he did, but prior to that, I was like, Trump wins, right? Some things he might do that you're going to be happy with,
Yeah.
but even if you were a Trump supporter, there's going to be other things where you're like, what?
Yeah.
I don't want you to do this. Same thing with Kamala Harris on the left.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you might be like, okay, good. She has these values, these things happening. But then there's other things where you're going to be like, I don't like that you do that. Either way you pick a party or whatever, there's going to be something that upsets you, right?
Yeah.
So like I go into that knowing that already.
Yeah.
No matter who wins, I'm like, there's going to be things that positively will affect me. There's going to be things that will negatively affect me. No matter what I do, there's not really much I can do about it. It's kind of set in motion,
Yeah.
right? And so that's kind of the way I kind of always approach politics. And I really stay in the dark. Like I try not to worry about it too much just because, like in everyday life and like just, day to day activities and things that how I move through life and the things that I think about aren't really revolved around politics. And I purposely keep it that way because it is very easy to get tied up into politics because it's a lot of it's a very opinion based, right? A lot of, your personal views or your views in generals are just all your own opinions, and people will refute others' opinions saying like your opinion's wrong, my opinion's right. And I'm just like, dude, their opinions, like, no one's right or wrong. Like, didn't you learn this in kindergarten?
Yeah, I mean that's super super true, and it's um like why, like for me, I don't understand why, like I think, and I hate to always bring it back to social media, but I just feel like we're like externalizing the value of ourselves. Like we're kind of like outsourcing,
Yeah.
like our value to, like, oh, if we get so many likes or whatever, then that means we're valuable, or we're,
Yeah.
and I just feel like we're spending so much time in kind of thinking about what others think of us, and giving so much power to people outside of ourselves, and not actually realizing how much power we have within ourselves. And I just see this shift happening in society, and I just think it's to the detriment of not only ourselves as individuals, but society as a whole, right? Because if you think that Trump has the ability to ruin your life, like maybe some of the things that he does in the next 4 years or whatever will affect you,
Yeah.
right? But ultimately, you are the one that's responsible, right? You are the one that gets to make the choices about your everyday, like how you go about things, whatever.
Yeah.
He is not going to be like chasing you around saying, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, whatever. So I just think, like, from my perspective, it's like I just feel as if people are not, like, they're looking outside of themselves, and they're ignoring, like, they're giving power, way too much power, to other people in their lives, and not realizing how much power and kind of um like effectiveness, and like actual ability to control things are totally within them. And I
Yeah.
think that's the whole purpose of this podcast, me writing a book, me having any of these conversations, is like, you guys realize, like, you are in control. Like, Trump is not in control of you. Kamala Harris is not in control of you. You are in control. But it seems to me as though, like, in society today, we are saying, oh, like, if this person's in control, then my life's in
Yeah.
chaos. If Kamala was in control, then my life would be great.
Hmm.
It wouldn't. It it's still dependent upon yourself.
Yeah. And that's how I've always felt, no matter who is the president, the things that I struggle with in my life as of right now and have in the past year have all been like very individualized and like nothing that from a political standpoint would really help me. Other than like, forgiving my student loans. That would have helped me financially.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was like, what am I struggling with? Oh, finding a career. It doesn't matter who the president is. Like they're still gonna struggle with that.
Yeah.
Like it's something that I have to work at, and having those individual successes is all based upon like what I do, not versus what someone else is doing. So
Well, okay. I'm just like, sorry, I'm reading a lot today. But the last post that I made on Friday on the blog that I write, like, I'm just gonna read it. And I think that this is kind of like basically like what I want to say here. And if we want to have anything further, then we can add some things. But so the title is, What Do I Actually Control? And here we go. This past week, I have had to search my soul in ways I have not done for a very long time. It was difficult. If I am honest, I don't really like what I saw. But I also came to this realization: I don't really have as much power and influence and prestige as I sometimes think I do. But what I do have is the power and ability to be the best person I can be, to love myself, and to love my family and friends and the students I work with, to be a good colleague and take care of myself and those within my immediate sphere, to be kind, gentle, and compassionate, and to pick others up when they may have stumbled or are simply feeling down. I have the ability to smile at others and to make them feel welcome in the spaces I inhabit. I can greet others in a way that makes them smile. I can give hugs if they are desired, and I can listen with all my soul when that is needed. Yeah, I might not have that kind of power and control, but I have something even better. And I think that's, for me, that's the reality, right? It's like, okay, like we can sit there and we can look, way out there or Washington D.C. or whatever. But like I think for me, what I kind of want to stress and like kind of like almost step back away from politics and just be like, guys, we're like we are giving way too much power to things that are not necessarily out of like not necessarily within our control
Yeah.
and not focusing enough of our time and energy and focus on the things that are right around us. Right? Like you and I had like one of the best nights that I've had in a long
Yeah.
time with a bunch of friends that we both know last night. And it was awesome,
Yeah.
man. Right. And it had nothing to do with politics. It had nothing to do with what was going on in Washington,
Yeah.
D.C. It was just us coming together and sharing and being real and like going and have a pint, as might say. And just like, I guess, I don't know. Maybe
No,
this,
I like where you're headed. I think, you know, like no more politics. Okay, we're done. Um, that was our politics for the year of 2024.
okay.
Um, but I think what you're saying is very important. A lot of people are giving too much validity into other people's opinions and letting it affect them because you choose what to be offended by and what is going to make you angry, right? Like you
Well, I think
have the power of choice.
don't we have to give props to Ricky Gervais?
Yes, because so Ricky Gervais, a famous comedian, and I love a lot of the things he says. But he was in an interview once talking, and they were kind of talking about being offended and political correctness and cancel culture, and he was saying something along the lines of like, "How dare you think that you can never not be offended?
Yeah.
Like that you can go through life and never feel the feeling of being offended." It's like everyone is going to be offended by something. You could be offended by the way someone dresses. Like it's going to happen,
Yeah.
but you can choose whether or not that actually does affect you in a negative way. And like sometimes I think you were kind of right on the nose with like social media. Social media kind of makes you start to care about things that you really shouldn't care about. Right? Like one of the episodes that we recorded this weekend, I talk about how I'm not on social media anymore and it really showed me that how not important it is. How in my life
Yeah.
I don't find any importance in social media,
That's brilliant.
right? And it's very kind of like liberating. And so I'm the same way with a lot of the things, that people do in their lives that I'm like, dude, it's not important, right? Like growing up, you start to pick things that you think are important. Like, when I was younger, I thought like, oh, the type of car you drive is important and like the how it makes you look and how it makes you feel and everything. Now I'm like, hey, do you own a reliable car that can get you from point A to point B? Good. Doesn't
Actually,
matter.
what's funny about that is I admire people more
Mm-hmm.
if they drive a Toyota Camry
Yeah.
than if they drive their Maserati around,
Right.
right? I'm like, okay, you have enough money to drive a Maserati, but that Toyota Camry could get you to from point A to point B the exact same
Yeah.
way, right? And that's kind of funny because my brother has a Maserati, and I admire the heck out of him. But he also drives a F-150.
Yeah.
Like that's his daily.
It's daily.
And it's like, yeah, that's like he has a ton of money, but he doesn't feel the need to necessarily show it.
Yeah. Which is good. So
Yeah.
all right, we gotta switch over. So one thing that I kind of want to talk about, and I briefly probably mentioned this on the podcast before. But so when I was in middle school, I was bullied a lot. And at first it really affected me negatively because I didn't really understand why I was being bullied. And I talked with my parents about it and was very
This was
open.
in middle school?
Yeah, middle school.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't. I think like fifth and sixth grade I was bullied, and then seventh and eighth I did well.
Okay.
But so like fifth and sixth I got bullied, and I think it was kind of like might have been jealousy and whatnot, and there was just a lot of childlike behaviors. But I would talk to my parents about it, and one, my dad always like really harped to me about like sticking up for yourself, standing up for yourself, and like he told me to like fight, and he was like, if you punch him, like that's fine, like you're never gonna get in trouble, like I'll come down to the school, it'll be fine. Which that's eventually what ended up happening, and I don't know if we've released an episode where I talk about it, but I'll get into the depths of that story another time. But for the most part, what ended up happening was one, I did have a physical altercation, but two, leading up before that, my dad kind of talked to me, and I eventually stopped caring that they were like bullying me,
Mm,
and they like lost all power.
yeah,
So then they had to resort to like being physical with me, and then that's where I had to take it up a notch.
yeah.
But basically, they would say like they said this one thing to me. It's kind of funny. I had really long curly hair, much like now, and um, for you audio listeners, I have beautiful, luscious hair. Now they don't know that. So they had called me and excuse my language, a long-haired pussy fuck, and I didn't even know what that meant.
It's an interesting combination of
Yeah, it was
words.
just it's when kids learn swear words and they
Yeah,
just blurt them out.
yeah,
And I didn't even know what it meant. And I just was like, okay, yeah, like it had no effect on me. It didn't make me feel bad. It didn't make me cry. I just was like, that's a weird sentence. I don't understand what that means. And then like eventually the principal was like, what did they call you? And then I looked at her. I was like, oh, they called me a long haired pussy fuck. And she was like, oh, and I was like, what?
yeah. Then you're like, oh, okay, now I'm offended.
But when my dad would talk to me and basically was like, the reason why they're bullying you is they're trying to get to you, they're trying to get a reaction out of you.
Yeah,
And it kind of made me learn very quickly like, oh, if I don't care what they say and just kind of let it be, they got nothing on me.
yeah,
All their attempts to make me feel bad just kind of like float away.
yeah.
They distinguish or extinguish, I should say. And so I just kind of like started to feel free. And that's also kind of like not that social media bullied me, but I bullied myself about social media. Like you can be your own biggest bully. And
Hmm.
so when I would look at social media, I'd be like, ah, Rowan, you're not having success like them. You should feel bad. And so now not
Oh,
having social media, I kind of like my own little, cheerleader instead of a bully. Like it just kind of freed up, like, oh, that stuff doesn't matter, Rowan. It doesn't matter anymore. So just like
well, I
feel better.
think for me, like that's the ultimate kind of one of the ultimate realities in this whole thing is like you get to choose.
Hmm.
Like, like, like I tell this to students all the time. Every single moment of your life is a choice. Like I ask them all the time, and these are like sixth, seventh, eighth grade kids, so they're pretty young, and so sometimes like the concepts that I propose to them are just like, what the
They're
heck
like,
are you
what are you
talking? What are
talking
you
about?
talking about? Yeah, sometimes they're a little bit advanced for sure, but I ask them like, is there anything? Because they're like, I have to go take this test, and I'm like, do you? And I'm like, is there anything that you have to do in this life? And they're like, well, yeah, I have to come to school.
I have to brush my teeth.
Yeah, I have to listen to my parents. I have to do what my teacher says. And I'm like, no, you really don't. Like you can choose to. And they're like, well, I have to come to school. And I'm like, no. There's going to be consequences if you don't. Like you're
Yeah.
going to get in trouble. The police are going to get involved, whatever. But
Do you ever worry that that'll have a negative effect, telling children that?
yeah, I actually got in huge trouble one time because a parent called me up and was like, "Did you tell my son that he didn't have to take the test?" And I was like, "Yep." And the parent just went off. She's like,
You idiot.
"Yeah," she's just like, "Well, he's not going to take it. Now he's going to fail it." And I'm just like, screwed that one up. Sorry, but I was like, "Yeah, I said
Yeah.
that."
Yeah.
And so yeah, I've gotten in trouble for saying that, and I'm pretty sure that I'm going to get in trouble a lot more for saying that. But ultimately, it's true though,
Yeah.
right? I
And
mean,
listen, you have a choice. You can say it or you can not say it.
yeah, exactly. But no, I think it's a really advanced concept, and it's not something that I think a lot of people would agree with. Like I think that they're
I mean, dude, not until I started like really hanging out with you did I start to like question that. I'd always be like, oh, I got to do this. And you'd be like, no, you don't. And I'd be like, no, I got it. You're like, no. And I'd be like, wait, I
yeah, like oh,
don't.
I have to pay my car payment. No, you really don't.
Yeah.
Like I have to, you know, I don't know, like there's nothing in this world that you have to do. Like you will die, right? That's the ultimate reality.
Yeah.
But I mean, beyond that, like every single moment presents you with a choice, and that is exceptionally powerful and exceptionally terrifying at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like if you actually think about that and realize the implications of that, but like and I mean, I was going to take it back to politics, but I'm not. Like how you react to any situation, right, is a choice, and that is something that is ultimately really really important to realize and really empowering, but at the same time, like has huge implications for your life as a whole. But yeah, you do like every single moment, like what you every single moment that you are alive presents options.
Yeah.
You can choose A, you can choose B. Sometimes you have C, D, E,
Hmm.
right? But you always have at least two different things that you can choose from.
Yeah.
And that's crazy to me, but at the same time, that's super cool. Like there's always no matter what you think, there's always at least a couple different choices that you can choose from. And that's really empowering. And that's something like when like why like if you choose to let somebody like that's another thing too that's kind of crazy is like when somebody bothers you, when somebody makes you mad or
Hmm.
annoys you or intimidates you or whatever it is,
I've never been intimidated.
you choose to let them do that.
Yeah.
That's that's kind of crazy.
It is crazy. And sometimes it feels, I'll speak for myself, it feels involuntary, right? Like the reaction feels just natural,
Yeah.
based off a lot of different factors, right? You could talk about intimidation, like, the fact that they're 7 feet tall and they're, super muscular and their name's Shaquille O'Neal. And you're like, like those things can be
Yeah, yeah.
intimidating, like from a natural standpoint.
Yeah.
But like, for instance, like me specifically, I'm not trying to act like I'm a big tough guy, but like Faja is a big man. And he
Yeah.
has a booming personality.
Yeah.
And he has let out the beast many times on me.
Yeah.
And I have seen man be angry, very, very violently angry.
Yeah.
And it kind of, in a nice way, I don't really get intimidated by many people. Like that doesn't mean that I'm not like, this guy's probably gonna beat the shit out of it. Like I'm aware, but I'm not like scared. I'm just like, okay, I probably shouldn't poke that button because this guy will let loose on me. But like the actual fear and whatnot, I don't really experience. But I n- I have the confidence I've had dealing with my dad and whatnot to decide like, oh, I'm not gonna let you intimidate me because you think if you get loud and big, it's going to work on me. Like I choose not to let that affect me.
Yeah.
And then I can see, and that kind of comes from the bullying thing. And then I can see the reaction when they're like, "Oh, it's not working." I'm like, "Yeah, no, like, I, I don't care." And like, I work in customer service, and people lead with aggression and bullying to try and get what they want, and I go like, that's
Yeah.
not gonna work on me.
Yeah.
Like, I do not care that you are an angry customer. Like, I'm a human being. You will treat me as such, and if you don't, you will leave.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think like all the time in schools, for me, like when students get dysregulated, I think a lot of times they they physically don't have the abilities. Like they're working from a part of a brain that doesn't allow them to rationalize or things like that. And so I had to take that into effect. But a lot of times I will be like, no, like you can be mad, um, you can say what you want to say, but like disrespectful things like that, like that's where I'm going to draw the line. But yeah, it yeah, it's really quite. It's just like it's a perspective that I I so strongly believe in, and that I stress all the time with people. But I also think it's a concept that most people would disagree with. Like most people would just be like, "Nah, like I don't know how it's not true, but it's not true." And like I get it because like if you do admit that you ultimately can choose how you react, how you the choices that you make, ultimately that leads to the end result of you are ultimately 100% responsible for every aspect of your life,
Yeah.
including the failures and the successes and everything else. and it's like, ooh, no, I don't want like
I don't want
like
that much
yeah,
responsibility.
that person's responsible for that. Like
Yeah.
this, my boss is responsible for that. My
Yeah.
my wife or my husband is responsible for that, and it's like, nope.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a toughie because sometimes it can be overwhelming. Like, you know, the this is kind of that's a little bit of a topic change, but I think it's appropriate for right now. So we talk about choices, right? And something that I mean, we've talked about it many times. I've struggled with is like I am at the point where now I'm like taking full responsibility for my life, and I have basically a decision to make on what I want to do next
Mm,
with my life.
yeah,
And I mean, I could do anything. I could become an astronaut, a doctor, a firefighter, a police officer, a chiropractor. Like I could choose any path,
yeah,
take full responsibility for it. I have so many choices that I'm like, oh man, I wish someone could be like, hey, you should do that. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do that.
yeah,
Like, but at the same time, there's so much more. There's so much more meaning and sense of accomplishment when you make the decision yourself and you start to find the success in following the path that you want for yourself that you deem is going to be the best. Because nobody can really pick the best path for you. They can pick one,
yeah,
but will it be the best path for you? And will you actually enjoy it? Probably not.
yeah.
But sometimes it works out. There's cases, odd ones. But yeah, that's kind of all I got. You got anything?
No, I think well, okay, like I do. I just think like the importance of that idea is I think that ties in nicely to everything that we're trying to accomplish, like here in this kind of podcast and just kind of the path that we're kind of treading along is that it's freaking overwhelming.
No.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying to accept responsibility. It's
Yeah.
terrifying to realize and to kind of allow yourself to think about, holy crap, like I have the I not only have the ability, like I have like the opportunity to control 100% of the moments of my life. And like I think that's really kind of a terrifying terrifying proposition for sure.
Yeah.
And then I think also like an interesting aspect is like when you don't necessarily have control of the situation, right? When there is a power dynamic, I'm thinking like in cases of rape or violence or things like that, when there is a fair amount of control taken away from you, right?
Yeah.
And there's the situation is not like you don't have, for whatever reasons, somebody else has power or control over that situation. But even in that situation, and I think this is where like people tend to have a kind of a negative reaction or whatever, and they say no, that's not always true. But even within that, even if that situation is happening, you have a chance of like, do I freeze, do I fight, do I like even in like a negative situation like that, there's still choices that are present. And I think I don't know. Like it's just it does seem overwhelming. It does seem really big. Like and
Yeah.
even in saying those sentences, it's just like, oh God. Like now I can see why people are going to kind of rebel against this idea. But I I stand strong. I think it's true. I think it's worthy. And I think if you can spend some time and get to the realization that you do have you always have a choice of how you think about things and how you react and the actions that you take, your life will be improved. And you will begin to realize that like the choices that you make do matter. And like you do have the ability to influence every moment. And when you begin to have that realization and to kind of implement that idea, you will begin to realize like, hey, I want to make choices that will make my life better, right? And I don't want to give. I don't want to allow others to make the choices for me. Like I want to be in control as much as possible. I don't want to allow others to make me crazy or make me sad or make me depressed about the future or
Yeah.
whatever it is. And I think in that sense, you will feel a huge amount of empowerment, agency, ability to control things, and just the ability to be happy in the life that you're creating.
Yeah. Well, on that, I think we can end.
Okay, I'm done.
Well, thank you for watching and listening. If you ever want to reach out to us and let us know your thoughts, NopeOpePod@gmail.com. The book is available in the podcast description. As we mentioned in the beginning of this episode, it was on the chapter called Government. And yeah, there's a lot of good chapters in there. A lot of other episodes we talk about it. But you got to read it for yourself. That's when you really learn the
Well,
lessons.
I would hope, like, if you actually do read this book, you would read it more than one time.
Yeah.
Because I think
It takes multiple reads.
anybody that's actually read the book, the first, like, I don't know, like I think you've said this, but
Yeah.
the first time they read it, they're like, this is nonsense, or I don't get it, or I don't agree with it, or whatever. And then the second time, maybe the third time, like it usually takes like 3, 4, 5 times, and then you're like, oh, actually, he might be making sense here.
Yeah. Well,
Like
you
I
also
think
you
I think
just
the
pick
first
up.
read is an aversion. Like people are
Yeah.
not happy with it.
Yeah. Well, you also start to pick up different things, and the thing is like from the first time you read the book to the second time, some life events have happened, and you start to think about them a little bit differently. And also, like we had said before, like the book is really it's for people in a certain point in their life. They have to have had a certain experience before we really think they're ready to read the book.
Like
Because
going
we had talked about Emmett, and we were like, he's not ready for it.
not ready.
Like
Yeah.
he tried reading it, he was like, I didn't really like it, and I was like,
Yeah.
you're not ready.
Yeah.
But he might be ready now.
Yeah.
I think he is.
It's
So.
possible. It's possible.
Alrighty, guys. Well, we appreciate you watching, listening, and we'll see you in the next one.